Hello, my dear students. Today in science, we are going to solve the question bank. Now, these question bank consist of various questions. How is your paper pattern? So, the first question from science is MCQ. And here are around 131 questions in MCQ of all the lessons. So, these type of questions may come for exam. So it is just a revision for you all to know how to answer the questions or what type of questions can come for the exam. So let's begin with the first question, that is, choose the correct option in the multiple choice answer for the following questions. All these questions carries 1 mark. So here 4 options will be given to you, out of which you have to choose the most appropriate answer. Okay, so let's see the first one, which is from the first lesson itself. A dash is necessary to change the speed as well as the direction of motion of an object. Now, you have learnt last year or in the earlier classes also that force is the phenomenon which has different effects, and one of the effect is that is it can change the speed as well as the direction of motion of an object. So the correct answer here is force. A force is necessary to change the speed as well as the direction of the object. Second, the orbit of a planet revolving around a star is, according to the Kepler's law, he said that orbit of every planet revolving around a particular star is elliptical in nature. Okay, so the answer over here is orbit of a planet revolving around a star is elliptical. Then, the square of its period of revolution around the sun is directly proportional to the dash of the mean distance of the planet from the sun. Okay, so this is Kepler's third law, okay, which says that the square of its period of revolution around the sun is directly proportional to the cube of the mean distance of a planet from the sun. Next, fourth question. The gravitational force between two bodies is directly proportional to the product of the masses of those bodies and is dash of the distance between them. So this is Newton's law. Okay, Newton's universal law of gravitation, which says that gravitational force between the two bodies directly proportional to the masses of those bodies and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. That is, F is proportional to m1 into m2 upon d square, wherein when you take out the proportionality sign, you get F is equal to G into m1 into m2 upon d square, where m1 and m2 are the masses and d is the distance, square of the distance between the two objects. Fifth one. The value of universal constant, gravitational constant G in SI unit is, now here there are so many options, but the correct option here is 6.673 into 10 raised to minus 11 newtons meter square per kilogram square. So A is the first option. A is the correct answer. Next, the dash force is much weaker than other forces in nature. So it is only all these forces, if you see electromagnetic, nuclear force, intermolecular force, these are very strong forces, whereas gravitational force is the weaker force. So here the correct option is gravitational force. Okay, so we can write here the answer is the gravitational force is much weaker than other forces in nature. The value of gravitational acceleration is, okay, now you have learnt according to the surface of the earth, okay, according to the surface of the earth. So we find that the value of the g changes. That means you know that our earth is not spherical completely, because at the poles it is flattened, okay. Since it is at the poles it is flattened, the value of gravitational acceleration become highest at the poles. Next, the value of gravitational acceleration g is dash at the equator. Okay, at the equator it is less as compared to that of at the poles. At the poles it is around 9.832 meters per second square at the poles. Okay, whereas at the equator, okay, it is decreasing and it becomes around 9.78 meters per second square. Fine. Then next, the free fall of an object is possible only in. Now free fall is the is under the influence of the gravity. Okay. Um, and under the influence of the gravity, actually all the objects should fall at the same time. But in the case of air, when it falls down, it has lot of resistive force resistance of the air it comes across. So that's why sometimes two objects may not reach at the same time. But in vacuum there is no friction of air, and therefore what can happen is that any object, whether it is a feather and of the one, suppose you take 1 kilo of feather and 1 kilo of iron ball, you'll find that both of them will be falling at the same time. Okay, irrespective of the masses, it will fall at the same time. It's because in vacuum there is no air. So here the correct answer is the free fall of an object is possible only in vacuum. Next, the weight of any object on the moon is nearly dash of weight of the earth. Here the correct answer is 1/6. So weight of any object on the moon is nearly 1/6 of the weight of the earth. Okay, earth is 6 times more than that of the moon, whereas moon is 1/6 of the weight of the earth. A person weighs 60 newtons on earth. His weight on the moon will be dash. Now on earth you have just now learned that it is 6 times more. Okay, 6 times more than that of the moon, whereas on the moon it is 1/6 of whatever is the weight. So suppose if you find out 1/6 of 60, it will be 10 newtons. So the correct answer is 10 newtons. Next, Dobereiner laid down the dash rule. Okay, so Dobereiner has laid down Dobereiner triad rule. So you have learned this in the second chapter about the Dobereiner, wherein he found that the elements are in the form of triads. Okay, they are in the form of group of 3 elements, each having similar chemical properties, and therefore he called these elements having similar properties as triads. So the correct answer here is triad, but that is option number C. But here the spelling is incorrect. Spelling should be TRIAD. Okay, students. So Dobereiner laid down the triad rule. Remember this. Fine. Newland's law of octaves is applicable up to. Okay, it is up to only one element, that is calcium. Is that clear, students? So calcium is the correct answer here. Next, X and Y are two elements having similar properties which obey Newland's law of octaves. The minimum and maximum number of elements in between X and Y respectively are. Okay, there are many options here. You don't have to worry here. Remember, according to Newland's law, he arranged the elements in increasing order of the atomic masses, and he said that every eighth element, he found that every eighth element had properties similar to those of the first. So that means first, when he arranged in the form of a row of 7 elements. Okay, and the eighth element was in the second row, next row. So he found that the first and the eighth element were having the similar properties. So here, according to the question, what is you have to see, remember, you have to see how the question is framed here. X and Y are two elements having similar properties which obey Newton's law of octaves. If you see 6 and 8, there is a difference between 6 and 8 is only 2. 7 and 15. 7 and 15, if you see, the difference is 8. Correct? 8. But we don't want, because here in between the elements will be between first and the eighth element will be 6 elements. Is that clear? So 7 and 15, the difference comes to 8, and we don't want this. 8 and 14, the difference comes to around 6. Correct? And 6 and 13 is another one. So 8 and 14 we cannot take, because 8 is the 8th element. Okay, we cannot have that. Having here what they said is the minimum and maximum number of elements in between. Okay, X and Y. So X and Y means, suppose X is the first element, Y will be the 8th element. That means it should start from second to 7th element, second to 7th element, right? So so here the correct option is 6 and 13 is the correct option. Okay, because first element, then 8th element, then you will have 14th element, right? So in this way you will have 6 is in between 7, before 7 it is coming, and 13 is coming before between 14, right? So the correct option is 6 and 13. Next, at the time of Mendeleev, dash elements were known. So at the time of Dobereiner, it was 56 elements, and when Mendeleev studied, he found that there were around 63 elements. Okay, so at that time 63 elements known, and he arranged the 63 elements according to the increasing order of their atomic masses. So the correct option here is 63. Next, in Mendeleev's periodic table, Eka silicon was later named as dash. Now, among these, if you see, silicon is a metalloid, and among all these things, only one is a metalloid, that is germanium, right? So, Eka silicon had the properties similar to germanium. Eka means similar to. Okay, so silicon. Eka silicon was having similar properties to germanium, so it was Eka silicon was later named as germanium. Okay, next, in modern periodic table, the number of columns and periods are respectively dash and dash. So if you see, the columns which are made are around 18 columns, which are also called as groups, and there are 7 horizontal rows which are called as periods. So the correct option here is 18 and 7. 18 columns and 7 periods. Okay, there are other options also, 16, 7, 6, 16, 18, 6, but the correct option is 18 and 7. Dash is the outermost shell for elements of period 2. Remember, period 2 means 2 shells. Okay, one period, first period means first row has only one shell, whereas second period has 2 shells. Remember, periods, number of periods means number of shells in an atom. So period number 2 means 2 shells are there, and 2 shells means the first shell is named as K, second will be named as L, third is M, fourth is N. So here dash is the outermost shell. So for since here period number 2 has only 2 shells, the first shell will be K and outermost shell will be L. So the correct answer is L is the outermost shell for elements of period 2. Next, the groups 1 and 2 constitute the dash block. So we have SPD, SPDF, and you know that S is the first one which is having the groups number 1 and 2. Next, which pair of atomic numbers represents elements in the same group? Now, if you could see, you will have to find out what is the electronic configuration of each one of them. And same group means it will have the same valency. I mean, the valence number of shells will be same. Okay. Now, let's see the first one, 11 and 19. 11 means 2, 8, 1 will be its electronic configuration, whereas 19 will be 2, 8, 8, 1. So that means this must be the correct option. But let's see others also. Okay, 6 and 12. 6 if you see, it will be 2 comma 4, correct? Whereas 12 will be 2 comma 8 comma 2. Okay, 2 comma 4 and 2 comma 8 comma 2. So last orbit if you see in last shell, you have 4 and 2. That means this is not the correct option. And in the same group, they should have same valence number of electrons. Is that clear? Or valence electrons. 4 and 16, it will be 2 comma 2. Second one will be 2 comma 8 comma 6. So this is also not the correct option. Last one will see 8 and 17. 8 means 2 comma 6, and this will be 2 comma 8 comma 7. So the first one is the correct option, that is 11 and 19, which belongs to the same group. Which among the following elements would lose an electron easily? Okay, now whenever it is losing of an electron, that means it is having a electro positive character. That means when it is losing its electron very quickly, it has higher electropositive character and metallic character also. So among these, if you see how other elements arrange, you know sodium is 11, whereas magnesium is 12, aluminum is 13, and chlorine is 17. They are belonging to the same period, okay, because they are having 3 shells. Each one of them are having 3 shells, so they belong to third period. So you have learned that the metallic character goes on decreasing from left to right. Okay, so left to right, that means the first element here is sodium, and since the metallic character, which depends upon the number of electrons, which how the electrons are lost, sodium is the correct answer, which would be the correct answer. So sodium can lose its one electron very easily, whereas magnesium, which has 2 electrons, it will require some more energy. Aluminum has 3 electrons, it will still require more energy, whereas chlorine is a non-metal, and it is instead of losing electron, it gains electron. So it's a non-metal, and its electronegativity is more. So here highly electropositive is sodium. Okay, so the correct answer is sodium. Which among the following is the largest element? So here also among this, if you see, sodium magnesium belongs to one period, whereas potassium and calcium belongs to the next period. Okay, so sodium and magnesium belongs to the third period, whereas potassium and calcium belongs to the fourth period. It's because sodium has 3 shells, magnesium also has 3 shells, whereas potassium has 4 shells, calcium also has 4 shells. Because potassium and calcium has 4 shells. So 4 shells, that means you have learned that as you go down the group, okay, they are belonging, sodium is belonging to the first group, first group. Magnesium is belonging to the second group. So potassium is belonging to the first group, and calcium is also belonging to second group under magnesium, below magnesium. So below sodium is potassium. Okay, below sodium is potassium, that is 19. And since it is coming below, okay, in the down the group, then sodium. So more than sodium, it has 3 shells, whereas potassium has 4 shells. So potassium will be the largest element among this. Okay, fine. Next, arrange the following elements in order of the increasing metallic character. So just now I've explained to you. Here you see sodium, silicon, chlorine, magnesium, and aluminum. They belong to the same period again. Sodium 11, silicon 14, chlorine is 17, magnesium is 12, and aluminum is 13. So in decreasing order of the metallic character will be, first will be sodium, then will be magnesium, third will be aluminum, fourth will be silicon, and fifth will be chlorine. Okay, so the second option should be the correct option, that is sodium is greater than magnesium, is greater than aluminum, is greater than silicon, is greater than chlorine. So sodium has the highest metallic character, whereas chlorine has the non-metallic character. Next, which one of the following does not increase while moving down the group of the modern periodic table? So which one of the following does not increase while moving down the group of the modern periodic table? If you see, atomic radius goes on increasing down the group. Metallic character also goes on decreasing down the group. Number of shells also goes on increasing down the group, whereas valency in a group remains the same. Okay, if it is the first group, it will have all will have the same valency. Is that clear? So valence is the correct answer for this. Next one, on moving from left to right in a periodic table, the size of the atom goes on decreasing. It's because there is as the number of electron goes on increasing in the outermost shell, within the same period there is a greater pull by the nucleus. Okay, and therefore as the number of electrons increases, the pull will be also increased from the nucleus, and therefore the size of the atom will go on decreasing. So therefore, on moving from left to right in a period, the size of the atom goes on decreasing. Next, which of the following statement about the modern periodic table is correct? 18 horizontal rows are known as periods. Wrong. We do not have any 18 horizontal rows. Next, 7 vertical columns. 7 vertical columns are also not there. We have 18 columns and 7 horizontal rows. So the first two options are wrong. Let's see the third one. 18 vertical columns are known as groups. So this is the correct option. Next, 7 horizontal rows are known as periods. This is also correct option. So here either they should have given none of the above as the fourth option. Here they have given two options as the correct options, that is C and D. 18 vertical columns are known as groups, yes, and 7 horizontal rows are known as periods. This is also correct. So C and D are the correct options. But since here you have to write only one, the question itself is wrong. Okay, that means one, the last one should have been none of the above. Next, 27, the D block elements are also called as transition elements. Remember this, D block shows transition because the last two shells, the number of electrons goes on varying in the last two shells, and since they show a transition from the lower level to higher level, the electrons are jumping from the lower level to higher level and then back from higher level to lower level. That is why they are also called as transition elements. Next, the size of an element. So the correct option here is the D block elements, also called as transition elements. The size of the atom is indicated by its dash, atomic number, radius, number of shells, and atomic mass. So it is not by atomic number, not even number of the shells. Atomic mass also is wrong option, but the correct option is radius. Radius means it is the distance from the nucleus to the outermost shell is called as the radius. So therefore the size of the atom is always indicated by how much is the radius, because even if the number of shells are same, as you go from left to right, though the number of shells may be the same, but the size goes on decreasing. It's because there is a greater pull from the nucleus, and therefore having even number of shells the same, the radius may not be radius may not be same. So here the size of the atom is always indicated by its radius, which is measured in terms of picometers. Okay, now dash is the distance between the nucleus of the atom and its outermost shell. So here it is the same question, but it is just twisted and put here. So here the correct answer is atomic radius. Atomic radius is the distance between the nucleus of the atom and its outermost shell. So remember this. Atomic radius is expressed in the unit called as picometers, because the atom is very small, and picometer means nothing but 10 raised to minus 12 meters. So that much small is an atom. Okay, so it is measured in picometers and not in nanometers. Nanometers 10 raised to minus 9 meters, micrometers is 10 raised to minus 6 meters, and millimeters 10 raised to minus 3 meters. So picometer is the correct answer. Next, the tendency of an element to form cation is the dash character of the element. Okay, tendency of an element to form cation is the dash character. So cation means losing electrons. Okay, that means a positively charged ion is called as a cation. Losing electrons means it's a metallic character. Correct. So the correct option here is metallic character of that element. Next, dash is in the liquid form in the halogen family. So halogen family, it includes chlorine, fluorine, iodine, astatine, all those things. So bromine, iodine, Okay, so bromine is the one which is in the liquid state. That is a non-metal, only non-metal which is in liquid state. So, and which belongs to the halogen family. Okay, chlorine, fluorine, bromine, all iodine, all these are called as halogen family. Out of these, only bromine is in liquid state. Others, fluorine is in gaseous state, chlorine also is in gaseous state, whereas iodine you get it in the form of crystals. Next, while going from top to bottom in a group, the atomic radius increases. Okay, remember this. Atomic radius goes on increasing because the number of shells goes on increasing down the group. So, therefore, increases is the correct answer. Next, tendency of an element to form anion is the dash character of that element. Anion means negatively charged ion. Okay, that is to accept electrons, and when you accept, when the element accept electron, it forms a negative charge, and negative charge means non-metallic character. So here the correct answer is non-metallic. Next, the elements from the zero group are also called as noble gases. Zero group means they have zero valency, that means their shells are completely filled, and since their shells are completely filled, they do not react, and since they do not react with anyone, they are also called as noble gases. Remember, noble metals also do not react, therefore they are called as noble metals, and these are also not reacting, and these gases because of their fully filled orbits, and therefore they are called as noble gases. So the correct answer is the elements from the zero group are called as noble gases. Writing a chemical reaction brief by using chemical formulae is also called a chemical equation. So this you have learnt in chemical formulae. You are always writing in the form of a equation. So that is the correct answer is writing a chemical reaction brief by using chemical formulae is also called as chemical equation. When the positive charge on an ion increases, so the negative charge on them decreases, it is called as dash. Okay. Now, positive charge on an ion increases means what? It is giving an electron, and giving an electron means nothing but oxidation. In oxidation, electrons are given. So here the correct option is oxidation, whereas reduction is to gain charges. Okay. Here when the positive charge increases, negative charge decreases, then it is oxidation is the correct answer. Next, chemical reaction which two or more products are formed from a single reactant is also called as decomposition. From decomposition you get two or more from one reactant you can get two or more products. So it undergoes decomposition. It undergoes decomposition and forms two or more products. Okay, so the correct answer is decomposition. So chemical reaction in which two or more products are formed from a single reactant is called decomposition reaction. Next, in the chemical equation, the dash are written on the left hand side. So always remember, on the left hand side they are the reactants, and on the right hand side they are the products. So the here answer is, in the chemical equation, reactants are written on the left hand side. Aqueous solution zinc sulfate is added in the aqueous solution of barium chloride. So this is the example of which one? Yes, it is nothing but the double displacement reaction, that is ZnSO4 plus BaCl2. If you react together, what you will get is ZnCl2 and BaSO4. That means double displacement is taking place here. The unit of electrical power is always measured in watt. Okay, so the unit of electrical power is watt. The live and the neutral wires have a potential difference. So always remember, between a live wire which gives a shock and the neutral wire which does not give any shock, that the potential difference between them should be around 220 volts. Okay, so the correct option is 220 volts. The live wire and the neutral wires have potential difference of 220 volts. An electric bulb coil of dash metal is used. Always, this is very simple. Everybody knows about it, that the tungsten filament or tungsten metal is used because it has high melting point, and the bulb works on the principle of heating effect of the electric current. Since tungsten is the metal which has high melting point and it undergoes heating effect, therefore tungsten metal is used in an electric bulb. So the correct answer is tungsten. The electricity bill specifies the usage in. Always remember, in the electricity bill always is given in measured in terms of kilowatt hour, and 1 kilowatt hour is also called as 1 unit. Therefore, the correct answer here is unit. Okay, electricity bill always you will get that many units you have consumed throughout the month, and that much for 1 unit you will have around 8 or 9 rupees maybe, and according to whatever the number of units are there, accordingly the charge will be there. Okay, so the correct answer is unit. The frequency of AC, especially in India, it is 50 hertz. Remember this. Next. These days when current in the circuit suddenly increases, dash switches are used. It is nothing but the miniature circuit breaker. Now I want to bring it to your notice, dear students, that miniature circuit breakers, that portion has been cancelled from your syllabus, but still here there is a question. So you don't leave when you are studying. Please do not leave anything. So the correct answer here is MCB. Okay, so these days when the current in circuit suddenly increases, there are miniature circuit breakers which causes the circuit to break. Okay, so they are called as miniature circuit breakers. A coil of an alloy is used in electric heater cooker as a resistor. A coil of dash alloy, it is the nichrome which is used in the electric heater and cooker. Fine. Next, the correct answer is nichrome. Coil of an alloy nichrome is used in electric heater cooker as a resistor. Then the right and thumb rule is also called as dash. It is the Maxwell corkscrew rule. Okay, so the right and thumb rule is also called as Maxwell corkscrew rule, whereas all others are from in the first lesson and the second lesson, that is the gravitation, and second one is the classification of the elements. So Maxwell corkscrew is the correct answer here. Now next one, dash is used for electrical measurement. Thermometer is used for measuring temperature. Galvanometer is used for measuring the electrical measurements. Voltmeter for voltage, and electric meter to give you the meter reading. So the correct answer is galvanometer. Which of the following scientists invented the rule of electromagnetic induction? So it's a very simple question. So it was Michael Faraday who invented electromagnetic induction, and we also have Faraday's laws of induction, so that you have to remember. So he was Michael Faraday who discovered or who invented the rule of electromagnetic induction. Next, which of the following substance contracts on heating? You know that only water has anomalous behavior. That is, it is instead of expanding from 0 to 4 degree, it starts contracting. Okay, and maximum contraction at the 4 degrees Celsius, wherein the volume goes on completely decreasing and density is very high. But after 4 degrees Celsius, it goes on expanding. Okay, so here the correct option is ice, because ice it is only showing contraction, whereas lukewarm water is warm water which will not show any contraction, whereas it will have expansion. Iron also, since it is a metal, mercury is also metal, they show expansion on heating. Okay, so that is why mercury is also used in thermometer, because it shows contraction and expansion according to the increase or decrease in the temperature. Okay, so the correct answer over here is ice. Next, if pressure increases the melting point of a substance, of course it will start decreasing. When pressure increases, the substance will show the decrease in its melting point. It will be faster, melting will be faster when pressure is increased. Therefore the melting point, whatever it may be, it will reduce. Then vapor content in the air is always measured by absolute humidity, that you have to remember here. Next, humid and dry nature of the air depends on, actually if you go to see this, students, this is amount of humid and dry nature of the air depends on three things, and all the three things are given here. That is, one is amount of vapor in the air, second is amount of vapor to make the air saturated, and third is the temperature of the air. So all these three options are correct. The fourth option should have been all of the above. So this is a very confusing question, and not confusing, it's a wrong question. Options are given wrong. Okay, either they should have given one correct option and other three wrong, or if they have given three correct options, then the last one should have been all of the above. Okay, so here A, B and C are the correct options for The humid and dry nature of the air depends on all these things. Next, vapors in air. So this is also another wrong question, because vapors in air condenses. It can condense depending upon the temperature of the air and how much the air gets saturated, can form fog as well as snowfall as well as rainfall. Okay, and D should have been all of the above. But here also there is it is wrong. The three options are A, B and C are the correct options. Okay. Next one, when the temperature of water decreases below 4 degrees Celsius, its volume, uh, you know, um, as I mentioned to you, at 4 degree, from 0 to 4 degrees Celsius, it starts contracting instead of expanding. So that means when it reaches to 4, it has maximum contraction and less of volume. Okay, volume is less, density is more. Okay, so at 4 degree, if it volume is more, that means below 4 degree, volume goes on increasing up to 0 degree Celsius. So the correct answer is increases. Okay, the volume increases. Next, in the region with a cold climate, the aquatic animals can survive 4 degrees Celsius. It's because of the anomalous behavior of the water. But here if you go to see, there are three options which are correct. That is, one is ice floating on the water acts as the insulator, because there will not be any exchange of heat taking place. That means the heat which is present at around 4 degrees Celsius will not escape outside. Okay, so which keeps the animals which are living inside, aquatic animals which are living inside, alive. Okay, whereas if it was in frozen condition, then no animals would have been surviving inside. Since the temperature below the ice is 4 degrees Celsius, and since ice is acting like an insulator, so that it does not allow the heat to escape out. Okay, or neither it allows any heat to pass in. So this is also correct option. Second option is also correct, that is the heat from the water cannot transfer to the atmosphere. And third, anomalous behavior of the water. So the correct answer is all the above. All the above can keep the aquatic animals surviving. Okay, next, from the options given below, the specific heat of dash is maximum. If you see the chart which is given in the heat lesson, you will find that copper is having around 0.095. Then we have silver. Silver is around 0.056. Then we have copper is around 0.095 and iron is around 0.110. So iron is the correct option here. Okay, so from the options given below, the specific heat of iron is maximum. Then ice ball is prepared from a shredded ice. Again, this is the example of a regelation. Okay, very simple answer. Next, the SI unit of specific heat. There are, there is here two options given. One is SI unit also, and another is CGS unit. So CGS unit is calories per gram degree Celsius, whereas the SI unit is joules per kilogram degree Celsius. So the correct answer is SI unit of specific heat is joules per kilogram degree Celsius. Next, dash is the apparatus to study the anomalous behavior of water. So this is very simple. The correct answer is Hope's apparatus is used to study the anomalous behavior of water. Next, dash heat is necessary to raise the 1 kilogram of water from 14.5 degrees Celsius to 15.5 degrees Celsius. So here actually you require 1 kilocalorie of heat. Okay, 1 kilocalorie of heat is required to raise the temperature of 1 kilogram of water by 1 degree Celsius from 14.5 to 15.5. Okay, but here 1 kilocalorie heat is not given as the option. So 1 kilocalorie is nothing but 1000 calories, and if you see, 1 calorie is 4.18 joules. Suppose 1 kilocalorie is 1000 calories and 1 calorie is 4.18 joules. That means 1000 calories will be 4180 joules, and 4180 joule will correspond to 1 kilocalorie heat. So here the correct option is 4180 joules heat is necessary to raise 1 kilogram of water from 14.5 degrees Celsius to 15.5 degrees Celsius. Next, due to dash, pencil looks bent in water in the given experiment. So here you can see that the pencil is changing its path. Okay, the direction of the light rays passing from one transparent medium, that is the air, into another transparent medium, that is water, it changes its direction. So here also due to change in direction, you can find that the pencil is getting bent inside the glass, and this property of changing its direction from one transparent medium to another transparent medium is also called as refraction. So the correct answer is refraction of light. Then in the following diagram, if I is 40 degree, then E is dash. Now I have already explained to you when we were doing this experiment that the angle of incidence is always equal to angle of emergence, and we have also proved this by doing so many times experiment. So right, so here the correct option is angle E will also be equal to 40 degrees. So the correct option is B. Then a ray of light strikes the glass slab at an angle of 40 degree with the surface of the slab. So I have told you, whenever it is an incident angle, and incident angle is with the normal and not with the surface of the glass slab. So if it is making an angle of 40 degree with the glass slab, surface of the glass slab, that means whatever is up to normal, when you count, it will be 90 minus 40, which is equal to 50 degree. So the angle of incidence which is made with the normal will be equal to 50 degree. The correct option is A. We see the sun even after it goes below the horizon because of refraction of light. It's not dispersion. Dispersion is light getting split into 7 colors, that is dispersion. Partial reflection of light takes place when a light travels from a denser medium to a rarer medium, and reflection of the light is does not take place in the atmosphere. Is that clear? So the correct answer is refraction of light, because the light passes from the space, that is vacuum, when there is no air, to which is a very rare medium as compared to that of air medium. So therefore air is a denser medium as compared to that of the vacuum. Space is a vacuum. So when it travels from a rarer medium to a denser medium, that is it bends towards the normal, and therefore this property is nothing but the refraction of the light. So the correct option is refraction of light, that is A again. Dash is the unit of refractive index. So refractive index does not have any unit. Okay, does not have any unit. When you cancel, you get you do not get any because refractive index is calculated by the formula sin I upon sin R. So here it does not have, since both on the numerator and denominator are having the same units, therefore they are getting cancelled. Okay, and therefore you don't have any unit for the refractive index. So the fourth option is the correct option. Next, n is equal to dash is also called as Snell's law. Snell's law says that sin I upon sin R is equal to n, that is refractive index. N means the refractive index is equal to sin I upon sin R, so which is also called as Snell's law. So the correct option here is, if you see here, you are first one is sin R upon sin I, so it is wrong. Sin R upon sin E, wrong. Sin E upon sin R, this is also wrong. And here there is a printing mistake, I feel, because it is not sin, it should be sin, sin only. Here 2 times it is written. So sin E upon sin R is also wrong. Last option is sin I upon sin R is the correct option. So here there is a small mistake, that sin is written 2 times. So you have to be very careful while writing the answer. Next, lights of different colors are used at signal for safety transport. From this, wavelength of the red light, wavelength of the red light is the highest. It's and therefore it can be seen from very far also, and therefore red light is having 700 as the wavelength. Okay, whereas 400 is of the violet color. Okay, which is least. Fine. So 700 is the correct answer, 700 nanometers. Next, if the refractive index of air with respect to glass is 2 by 3, that means when the light is traveling air to glass, it is 2 by 3. What is the refractive index? So it will be traveling again from glass to air. That means if of the air it is 2 and glass it is 3, therefore from glass to air it will be 3 by 2. Correct? So the correct answer is 3 by 2. Okay, that is second, B option. Next one. The process of separation of light into its component colors while passing through a medium is also called as dispersion of light. This I have just mentioned to you before when I was telling you about the refraction. Okay, component colors means the white light splits into 7 different colors. So in dispersion it separates into 7 different colors. Next, light changes its direction going from one transparent medium to another transparent medium. This also I have told you, it is a refraction of light. A ray of light gets refracted dash while entering the lens. See, it is here, it's a very confusing one. It's, you see here, a ray of light gets refracted dash while entering the lens. While entering the lens, it will refract only once, whereas while it is passing through the lens, then it will get refracted 2 times. That is, one when it is entering, and second one when it is leaving the lens. So there, that time it will be 2 times. But here, since it is only asked while entering the lens, so the correct option is once. A ray of light gets refracted once while entering the lens. Next, the point inside the lens on the principal axis through which the light rays pass without changing their path. Okay, point inside the lens it is said, and there is only one point in the center, that is the optical center. Okay, so through when it is passing through that optical center only, you will find that it will not change its path. So the correct answer here is optical center. Next, virtual image is formed if an object is placed between, remember, at infinity it will form real and inverted. Okay, at in between 2f1 and infinity it is again real and inverted. At 2f1 it is real and inverted. Between f1 and 2f1 is also real and inverted. Okay, at f1 also it is real and inverted. Only between optical center and f1 it will have virtual, because it is very close to the lens, and therefore it, instead of converging, it diverges the light, and therefore it forms the virtual image, which is not formed on the screen. So here the correct answer is D, that is between f1 and O. Next, in the convex lens, if an object is placed at 2f1, the image is formed at, of course, 2f1 is the center of curvature, and you have learnt that at the center of curvature, if an object is kept, always the image will be also formed at 2f1. Okay, so f1, 2f1, beyond 2f1, on the same side of the lens as the object. The correct answer is 2f1. Then next one, all distances parallel to the principal axis are measured from, remember, all